Some people become famous because they found a sound, discovered a look, found a hook. Others become unforgettable because they found and honored the truth. My guest today is Bif Naked. Born Beth Torbert, an artist who's never been interested in polishing the edges for public comfort. She didn't build her career by being easy. She built it by being real.
When people say life is short, I believe life is long. And I think that we have lots of things we can do with the life that we're given.
My whole life, I was never good enough for so long. Nothing could pick me up. It's not fair. Always running out of luck.
Her story begins far from the spotlight. Born in New Delhi, adopted, raised across borders, shaped by that early feeling of being different, of not fully belonging anywhere. She turned outsider into fuel, yet she never once pretended it didn't hurt.
I love myself today, not like yesterday. I'm cool, I'm calm, I'm gonna be okay. I love myself today.
Over the years, she's become one of our country's most respected and outspoken voices. Not because she chased controversy, but because she refused to live a life that was edited, muted, or managed by anyone else.
You know, if you feel like an outcast or like an outsider, I think that you can go one of two ways. You can become absolutely guarded and jaded, or the opposite can happen, where you are more open.
Just a moment of weakness. I should examine my head. Just a moment of weakness. I never meant a word I said.
Her story isn't about music, it's about identity, survival, reinvention, and the kind of courage that doesn't come from confidence. It comes from having no choice but to keep going.
She says, when are you going to give up? All you ever do is keep trying. And I just thought, what are you talking about, lady?
I saw a girl just the other day with a pink umbrella in the pouring rain. She said the world is over. I can't believe it's true.
And right now, she's writing a powerful new chapter. New music, including her new studio album, Champion, her first studio album in over a decade. A new documentary that pulls back the curtain on what it really costs to stay and be yourself. This is not a greatest hits interview. This is a human journey conversation about what it costs to stay true, what it takes to rebuild, and what you learn when you live through enough to stop the pretending.
You have absolutely no boundaries at all. That's the way I am. I've been married a lot.
I am sick and you are healthy. You are rich and I am filthy.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman. Thank you for listening to Chatter That Matters, presented by RBC. If you can, please subscribe to the podcast. And ratings and reviews, well, they're always welcome and they're always appreciated.
Bif Naked, welcome to Chatter That Matters.
Oh, wow. What an introduction. Aren't you something? Thank you so much. What a thrill.
I'd love to go all the way back because everybody knows you as Bif Naked. The name, the stage, the spotlight. Who was Beth Torbert as a kid? And what did you learn about the world as a child?
You know what? My parents were so much fun, positive, bleeding heart socialists. They were Americans. They met at the University of Minnesota. Do-good little Christian kids. They were United Methodist kids. My dad was a preacher's kid, and both of my parents were at the March on Washington listening to Dr. Martin Luther King. They loved social justice, and they loved God, and they went on different missionary things all the time. My dad was in Selma, Alabama, marching with his congregation brothers against injustice. And my parents went to India, not to spread the Christian word, but to fix teeth. My dad was a dentist, and really that was his life's work. He wanted to train dental therapists. And when they were in India, they adopted my older sister from an ashram. And then a year later, they found out about a Canadian teenager, which was my mother, who had gotten herself knocked up because she was a friendly, good-looking girl. And so they adopted me and they moved back to the United States. And then eventually he wound up taking a job in the Paw, Manitoba. He flipped a coin and he could either go to the Democratic Republic of Congo and train Congolese dentists, or he could go to the Paw, Manitoba and train dental therapists to go work in the remote communities of Upper Manitoba. Thus, we moved up to Northern Manitoba where I cut my teeth, and that's where I grew up.
When he flipped the coin, did he later in life ever regret not going to Africa?
You know, in many ways, I believe it was for the best because I am such a little patriot. I love Canada, and I loved being the only Canadian in my family. My dad used to introduce me as their little Canuck. But at that time in the 70s, it was very bad in the Congo. They were going through a revolution. It probably would have been inhospitable. But it was wonderful, the programs that he set up and doing all those dental exams for kids. A lot of dental therapists were trained under my dad through the Kuwaitan Community College. And then years later, he went back up there. And a lot of the times, even in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, and then all throughout the north, when I still play concerts up there, I meet people all the time who were trained under my father. And so it's very bittersweet because he's no longer with us.
That must be special, to get a perspective on your dad from people who he touched with this beautiful gift of helping others to help others. You talked about their sort of upbringing. When you've got such faith in your family, how do you ever shape who you are versus who you're expected to be?
Oh, my parents are so funny. They were so supportive. It was my older sister, myself, and my younger sister. Of course, I was the class clown in school and in my family. Because I now know my birth mom, I met her when I was 21 and know her and love her. And so I'm very aware of what is nature versus nurture. She and I are like sisters. A lot of our mannerisms are the same. We like a lot of the same things. Personality flaws. We have a lot of the same beliefs spiritually. I believe there's a real thread that runs through us in that way. It's very interesting and mystical and fun and funny and magical. And I'm also my mother's daughter. My primary role model was my mother, shy and quiet and polite and deeply affected by her own childhood. It's just so interesting to marvel at the journey that we're all on as adults, how we're so shaped by our childhoods.
Did you get a better sense of understanding who you are when you met your birth mom and realized that some of the energy that was roaring through you, that spirituality, wasn't by accident, wasn't that you were an anomaly compared to the mother that nurtured you?
Most definitely. And the thing that was the most jarring for me was to discover that my birth mom is also adopted. She knows nothing about her past. And in the world that we live in now, you can look it up. You can look up all your DNA evidence and you can look up through all these companies that have that available to you. It still doesn't tell you what you need to know. Until you sit with the person, you don't know for sure. That's fascinating. And I think that's the interesting thing about life. And it's nice to have those mysteries unravel for you and to marvel at them and to think about them and to wonder what could be.
When was the first real hug like? Was it when you connected at age 21, or did it take each of you a while to sort of dance around each other before you realized that you were going to be connected with this incredible bond of love?
Oh, no, it was absolutely immediate. I don't know. It was so natural and like not a moment had ever passed. It was so perfect.
I have to believe in some ways your relationship would be even stronger because I have to believe that every second that you're together now, it's not only making up for lost time, but coming at our relationship, both of you as being adults.
It's like we didn't miss a beat. And she has 2 adult children. And when I met them, I was 21. And so my half sister would have been 19. And my half brother would have been, I guess he would have been probably 10 at the time. And it's like we had known each other all the time. It's reassuring in many ways. I think that about life. Sometimes, they say when you make a friend, people make remarks like, I felt like I'd known you my whole life. And I always think you probably have. Parallel lives or past lives or all these like crazy things that people talk about or believe in. But I always say, I don't know. Maybe there's something to that because I've lived it.
You also talk about, and I hinted at it in my opening, about not fitting in and not belonging. Yet to have your heart open up the way it did for your birth mom and your half sisters, not fitting in didn't create a wall or a moat. Why is that? Because a lot of people that sense that spend their entire life building armor not to let anybody in.
If you feel like an outcast or like an outsider, I think that you can go one of two ways. Is that you can become absolutely guarded and jaded, or the opposite can happen where you are more open, more trusting. As many people even warn you, you're too trusting, or you're even more of an open book, or you're oversharing. You have absolutely no boundaries at all. That's the way I am. I've been married a lot.
Talk to me about how you discovered poetry and music. Was this a way to escape where you didn't feel you fit in, or was this a place to escape where you felt you belonged?
I've always written poetry. I think since I was a little kid, I just really liked it. I love languages. I love words, communicating. I had no ambition to be a singer. It never popped into my head. I wanted to be a ballerina because I loved my ballet teachers. And I really thought that's what I was going to do until I was in the school play. I was Goldilocks in the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So I was like, I want to be an actress now. So I was in theater at the University of Winnipeg in a band quite by accident to impress a boy. It just never stopped. And I thought, well, it's a good exercise in theater. I was in musical theater anyway. It was a perfect vehicle for my poetry. It was a perfect vehicle for our ability to express our discontentment and our disenchanted feelings about the political systems, being in these punk bands, down with the government, City Hall, all the stuff that we were upset about when we were 20. And it was amazing. It was a great vehicle as young people and as a young feminist. It was fantastic. I loved it. I loved being on the stage anyway. It was perfect. And it's been the perfect life. And here I am in my mid-50s, still able to do this. It's always been an artist's life. We all always lived hand to mouth. It's different every year. You can't anticipate what the year is going to bring ever. It's not for everybody.
I look at your career and it didn't look like you played necessarily by the rules. It tried to get a little bit of certainty or a little bit of a foundation. To me, it was always, each day was a different way to express yourself.
It still is like that. And I love it. It's always interesting. I've been very, very lucky. I have to say, I can't believe it. Sometimes I pinch myself. I've been lucky. I've had the same manager since I was 21 years old. I have no business sense in many ways. And Peter always had, especially when I was younger. I needed somebody who was an adult to be able to discern what was going on in business. I just had no idea. He believed in me. I had no belief in myself. I was insecure.
How did the name Bif Naked come about? Was it just needing an alter ego, a cape to put on that sort of said, I'm not going to be the shy person when I get on stage. I'm going to rage. I'm going to be a very different person?
Biff was a nickname that I had already had since about the ninth grade when someone mispronounced my name, Beth. And then Bif Naked was my punk rock stage name ever since I was in Gorilla, which was my first real band in Winnipeg.
Was your music early on, was it a sense of fighting to be understood, or was it really just trying to find a stage that you could sing on?
I think it was a bit of both, but it was also a way of our expressing ourselves. We were so impressed by the bands that we were playing with, like DOA, SNFU, and all these Canadian punk bands. I mean, they had such a great message. Bad Brains. We did a cover of Attitude in the Regulator. They had these lyrics, they don't care what you may say, we've got that attitude. Don't care what you may do, we've got this attitude. They sing about PMA, positive mental attitude. It was just like, it just spoke to us. And Gorilla was, we had this one song called Upbeat Generation. It just makes me smile to recall, how impassioned we were when we would do these shows. At the time, we hoped that we would empower the audience the same way.
When I listen to your music and read the lyrics, has anybody ever said that you have a bit of a Peter Townsend quality too?
You can't repeat that. I have a best friend who loves The Who so much that he would actually just like fall over and faint if he ever heard that. He'd probably argue with you, actually say, don't say that.
But you do have that sense of insights into the moment, insights into the human being, how, behind blue eyes, talking about how an individual felt in context with the circumstances they were in, the society they were part of. That often came through, that sense that the truth, it's powerful, but at times it can be costly because it doesn't always get you radio play. It doesn't always get you the venues that your music deserves, but you stayed to it.
Right.
That fearless sense, was it an anarchy? Was it like, I don't want those stages? Or is it more, this is just who I am and the world's going to have to discover me versus me going out of my way to have you find me?
Very big compliment, I got to say. But at the same time, I think never thought in my head. I don't know. I think everybody who plays on a stage would hope for their lifetime that they can play in front of anybody. They would hope to play in front of thousands of people. It would never occur to any young band. Maybe today it does with the way young bands think. I don't know.
What was that moment when you're on stage and you're going, I don't know if I'll ever find this again?
I think that every show feels like just one person you connect with, really and truly. I remember the first tour I was doing with a real band in 1994, when we opened for Moist. I couldn't believe it. And I'd only played punk rock clubs in the basement with my bands. And then we got to open for Bad Religion at the Commodore Ballroom in Vancouver, or we got to open for DOA. I couldn't believe it. And then one day we headlined the Commodore. And then one day we played with the Prodigy in Germany in front of 80,000 people. And then I still think of Tina Turner. She played stadiums not until she was in her 50s. You're always striving. I can think of one of my husbands long ago. His mother, she says, when are you going to give up? All you ever do is keep trying. And I'd already had several records out and I'd already played, in front of, 25,000 people, 30,000 people. And I just thought, what are you talking about, lady? Everything that your son has, I've paid for. And I remember thinking, man, this person doesn't get it. She doesn't get my job. Give up what?
What happens when your stage image and persona, they start feeling that's who you really are? Do you disconnect the two?
Well, I'm the same person on stage. And that's the problem. We can sing a very boisterous song about being enraged and, we can, whip our hair around, disconnecting our carotid arteries from our necks. And then I can stop and say thank you to everyone and tell them I'm so happy. I want them to make sure their parking is covered. Does anyone need to call their babysitter? Right now, I'm going to have some water or take a break. I am who I am. As I get older, my audience also gets older. And that's the one thing that I have come to learn is a joy, and it's funny. And it is funny. And my audience is, they're going to go, I have to start playing earlier because my audience is, they're older. They want to go home.
Stick around because when we return, Bif Naked and I talk candidly about our focus suddenly changing from this creative canvas to health concerns. Not once, but twice. But from the fear came new inspiration and a new perspective on life. Hi, it's Tony Chapman. I want you to close your eyes for a second and think about the first time that music moved you. It might be this song you played on repeat until you tested the patience of everyone around you. And think about how many times music has come to your rescue since. It might have carried you through a breakup when words fell short and silence felt too loud. It pushes you through the last stretch of a 10K when your legs are burning. It gives you permission to dance like no one is watching. And when you're alone, it becomes your companion. It creates space for reflection and inspiration and validation. Music takes you back to who you are at your core, but at the same time, it carries you towards who you're becoming. That is why music matters. And that is why supporting our young artists matter even more. And that's where RBC steps in. Through RBC First Up, RBC supports emerging Canadian artists with mentorship and development and real opportunities to perfect their craft and to sing for their supper. And if you live in Toronto or find yourself visiting this summer, you have to experience music on a whole new level at the RBC Amphitheatre. It's located on the waterfront, and it's designed to create immersive live experiences that bring artists and fans together in powerful, unforgettable moments. It all comes down to belief in artists, belief in shared experiences, and belief that culture is worth investing in. Music matters to you, and music matters to me, and music matters to RBC.
You can heal from something and you can forgive. Absolutely. And I think it's important. Everybody's journey is different in life, but I think that as an artist, even if you don't realize it, it's going to be something you can always draw upon. You can still write lyrics as a poet. You can weave that into the fabric of what you're writing because it's a lived experience that you have.
She likes it heavy.
Today, my special guest is Juno Award-winning singer, songwriter, and a force of positive human nature, Bif Naked. Let's talk about your health issue because you were public about it. Did you ever, going through that health issue, concern that you'd no longer have access to that stage?
I was 36 years old when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I thought, thank God it's not my mother. Thank God it's not my sister. And I also thought, I hope I die because I'll have a good looking corpse. I won't have to get old in front of people. I won't have to get old in public. That didn't happen. I recovered. The one thing I feel happy about is that I went through chemotherapy. I went through radiation. I went through all, the ovarectomy. I went through instant menopause at 36. Bam, done. Not the long, drawn out lead up. It put me into a club with other people who are cancer survivors, cancer families, newly diagnosed rookies of cancer patients, where I get to be a person who gets a seat at the table. My volunteerism soared, and I became a peer-to-peer support volunteer. And it is the most rewarding, joyful part of my life to this day.
Has it changed your music? Has it changed your philosophies in life that you survive that and now see other people going through that?
As I get older now, I find that it has reprioritized my life in many ways. Cancer was not my health scare. I had a stroke after I had breast cancer. That sucked. Breast cancer was easy compared to that, which was a big shock because I was not prepared to have that happen only 2 years later. I still have catheter tubing in my chest from lots of blood clots, but I'm also happy that that happened because now I feel like I can speak to that as a healthcare volunteer.
When you internalize these things, is it channeled rather than maybe you digesting it, you're using it just simply to improve, as you said, to become a better volunteer, to have more context with talking to other people? I mean, do you think that partly your calling on this planet has always been to share your feelings, whether it's music or volunteer, that this kind of what you were meant to be?
100%. You nailed it. Like, I still think that is still evolving. And I don't know what it entirely looks like. And when people say life is short, I believe life is long. And I think that we have lots of things we can do with the life that we're given. And I think it can look different every year for people. It's not that there's not enough hours in the day. It's what we can creatively do with them, what we're driven or called to do with them. It's what we're passionate enough about.
Do you think people open up their minds to what they're called for? Do you think everybody has a certain calling in life, but either you have to go through a health crisis or early trauma or open a door you didn't even know was there, it suddenly puts you on that path? Or do you think that within all of us, we should be much more open-minded to finding the things that truly matter?
Often I think people, they need a spark. And often for people or families, it happens to be a jolt, which usually is a crisis that happens, whether it is a car accident or cancer or a death or a birth or a thing. It's a jolt. It's a hiccup of some sort. And we need that because life is busy.
You talk about you being the same person on stage as you are in real life, but you have a quote saying, save the rage for the stage.
That's where you should channel your art. Even painters, visual artists and stuff like that, and poets, they do. They save that's where they throw their rage, is they put it in their art. And it comes across and it's memorable and it's inspiring for people and it motivates people.
I watch a lot of biographies, journeys, people have found a way to make it. And I find that a lot of the top artists in the world, the true songwriters that I'm blown away with, very often had to find or discover or live in a part of society that most of us don't see. And then over time, as they leave that society, I'm thinking the Springsteens, he even gave up on his brand for a while. And the Elton Johns, the Bernie Taupin, that wrote such great songs. It seems as they get older, they lose sight of that. As an artist, how do you maintain that edge that you're constantly pushing things out into the world that you hope is going to make people stop, think, feel, act differently?
They say the same thing is true with trauma. You can summon it. You never lose that history that is imprinted in you. Those memories, those events have made an imprint. You can recall them. When you sit down to write lyrics, you can recall those. When Peter or Doug, for example, if they're sitting down to write a riff and we're writing a song, even if they're gone through a fight with their girlfriend, for example, they can sit there and that can be the initial inspiration. But that may also dredge up something from their childhood that keeps that feeling going, that will keep that riff going or go deeper. And I think the same is true for anybody.
Why so long between albums? I think it was 12 years since you were back into the studio. Now you've just brought out Champion. I'm curious why that break?
Champion was supposed to be released in 2020. The first single came out in 2020, and then the pandemic hit. We waited. I call it George Floyd summer. It would have been disrespectful for us to have continued. There would be no way. I mean, it was devastating what was happening in the world.
And how do you feel about the timing now?
Well, now is the perfect time for Snowblinded, that's for sure.
Not a hot towel shave can save you from a cold bitch. Throw down, roll you around.
Snowblinded is a song that is definitely all about people needing to wake up. Our idea that society is blind to what is important.
And how did you feel about the documentary?
I could not be happier. I think that Pollyanna Hardwick Brown is kind of my guardian angel, deeply committed to the truth of my story, tenderly and meticulously telling a fan's version. And it was just so beautifully and thoughtfully put together.
When you watched it, did she show you pieces along the way, or did you see it for the first time as a finished product?
I saw it at the end. I saw the final rough cut with Peter. I sat down with Peter and watched it with him together.
And how did it feel?
I cried. I was so moved. I just was so touched.
And when you watch something like that, your life story told through somebody else's eyes, do you kind of go, that's the final chapter? Or does it motivate you to say, it's time to write a new book?
Yes, I am actually. Yeah, I feel like I'm at my halfway mark.
Very often when a documentary like that comes out, it's a story of someone's life. But to me, it was a leg on your journey.
That's exactly right. I feel like I'm at my middle point. And that's something I hadn't anticipated feeling.
So what's next creatively, personally, spiritually, 5 more husbands? I mean, what?
I don't think so. I don't know. Yeah. Peter says no for sure. That's a definitely for sure. Maybe some wives. At this point, we're going to probably finish a book, and then we've got a lot of touring ahead of us for the next year. And of course, the movie based on the book Ibificus is underway. And so that's very exciting for us.
Who's going to star in that?
Oh, your guess is as good as mine. They've been playing ping pong with that for a while.
What's your happy scale now compared to any time in your life? Are you finding that it just every year is getting better and better? Or?
I find that with getting older, I find that I just laugh all the time now. And that's something that I think is such a juicy part of getting older. I'm so glad that that's a part of my life.
And looking back, is there anything you'd change?
Not a thing. Well, maybe the laugh.
Bif, I always end my interviews with my 3 takeaways. And first of all, of all the guests I've had on this show, and over 350, you've surprised me the most. Because as I looked at your interviews and listened to your interviews and your study and stuff, I had no idea that I'd be finding somebody that's just giggles and laughs and smiles as much as you do. The book I read by the cover is very different than the chapters within. Not that I was expecting this rage or anything. I can understand how you'd be nature to nurture, because there's this beautiful warmth that comes to you, and you're open to love and you're open to possibilities. And I think that's a wonderful lesson for people. I think the second one is this sense of you can heal from trauma, but you never lose it. And the fact that you've channeled your trauma into your art and into your volunteering is a great lesson in life for people listening, because we all have to overcome circumstances, but just because there's things in our knapsack we're happy we're moving on from, never lose them, because you can draw upon them. And at times it'll take you places you weren't allowed to go before because you didn't have that context. I love that about you. And the third is just this sense of, we throw this word reinvention around, which I don't like. It's this constant exploration you're on. This voyeurism of the world, this exhibitionism to the world, this sense of powerful energy that you're bringing out and taking in, almost like the way you inhale and exhale. And I think that people should have that, not just in their 20s, but in their mid-50s, the way you do, in their 60s and 70 years old, that as you age with the belief that there's certain parts of your life that are only going to get better and better, versus spending your time looking in the rearview mirror when you thought you might have been better. So for all of that and more, Bif Naked, I just enjoy chatting with you.
Oh, thank you so much, Tony. Me as well. What a pleasure it's been.
Once again, a special thanks to RBC for supporting Chatter That Matters. It's Tony Chapman. Thanks for listening, and let's chat soon.